Greetings, soul wanderer. How are you faring, and from which corner of the world do you listen today? In this video, we will unveil the true nature of angels, not those painted by the church, but those concealed in ancient scrolls. What if everything you knew about angels was but a shadow of truth? Not gentle guardians with wings, but formidable sentinels of eternity, judges whose words shattered the fates of nations. Today, the veil will fall, and you will see their true visage, hidden for centuries. Hearken, as this mystery began. For centuries, people envisioned angels with radiant faces, gentle wings, and comforting gazes promising salvation. But ancient scrolls, dusty and forgotten, hold a different truth. There, angels appear in blinding radiance, before which mortals fell prostrate, shielding their faces in awe. Their voices, like rolling thunder, shook mountains, and each word rang as a verdict from which there was no escape. These were not tender guardians, but heralds of eternity, whose will could exalt or shatter entire kingdoms. In texts preserved from the earliest civilizations, they were described as pillars of light, their forms barely discernible behind a veil of fire. They brought not solace, but knowledge, heavy, like a stone weighing upon the heart. Sumerian clay tablets speak of beings whose steps cracked the earth, whose gazes forced rivers to shift their courses. One such herald appeared to priests in the night, its words, etched into stone, foretelling a city's downfall. None dared challenge their will, for their presence was like the breath of creation itself. But why did the image of angels change? Over time, their grandeur was dimmed, their power concealed behind tales of mercy. The church, raising its temples, favored an image that did not frighten the flock, but drew them with promises of protection. True accounts, brimming with strength and severity, were cast into shadow, hidden in monastery cellars, in secret archives where only the chosen could touch the truth. Angels, who once spoke to kings as equals, became mere symbols in human eyes, stripped of their original might. This lie took root deeply. It robbed us of understanding that angels are not servants of human hopes, but guardians of higher laws, whose presence demands not worship, but awakening. Their light is not for comfort, but for illumination. And those who dare to glimpse their true face can never return to former illusions. The darkness of night enveloped ancient settlements when the heavens suddenly parted. The wind fell silent, and in the stillness, a sound like a distant hum chilled the blood in veins. Angels appeared without warning, their silhouettes blazing in the gloom like stars torn from the sky. On Babylonian clay tablets and in the parchments of desert hermits, accounts endure of those who saw them. But none dared speak of it aloud, for their appearances sowed not hope, but awe bordering on terror. In a scroll unearthed near the Dead Sea, a tale describes a heavenly guardian appearing to a shepherd. Its face was veiled in a shroud of light, and the words it spoke left marks on stones that none could decipher. The shepherd returned to his village, but his mind was broken. He muttered of a voice that foretold the end of times. Those who tried to interpret the signs vanished, like shadows dissolving into the night. Other texts mention doors marked with strange symbols that appeared after such visits. None dared open them, fearing the wrath that might descend from above. This fear was no accident. Angels sought not human love. They were emissaries of a will surpassing earthly laws. Their presence reminded people of their world's fragility, how easily it could be shattered. Ancient chronicles tell of a city where, after an angel's visitation, well water turned bitter and crops crumbled to dust. The inhabitants fled their homes, but none dared blame the celestial guardians. So why were these stories erased from memory? The church, consolidating its power, feared a force it could not control. Tales of nocturnal apparitions and signs that broke minds were too dangerous. They reminded people that angels were not their protectors but judges, whose word was inescapable, and this fear, hidden in ancient texts, still awaits those bold enough to touch it. When stars faded in the night sky, the ancients saw another sight, a radiance slicing through the dark like a blade. Angels, whose names echoed like eternity's call, were not only guardians but warriors, their battles unfolding beyond human comprehension. In scrolls hidden beneath Egypt's sands, they were described as forces clashing with nameless shadows dwelling in the void between worlds. Each appearance on earth was no mere visit. It was a rupture, an invasion from a reality where time held no sway. In a legend carved on basalt slabs, a tale speaks of a celestial warrior whose spear blazed brighter than the sun. He appeared before a city fallen to pride, and his steps shook its walls. The shadows opposing him had no form, yet their presence poisoned the air, making people choke with fear. The battle lasted a moment, but its echoes reshaped the land's fate. The river sustaining the city sank beneath the sands, and life deserted those lands forever. Such stories were not fables, they were warnings. Angels fought not for human souls, but for the balance upholding creation. Their foes, faceless and silent, were a threat humans could only dimly fathom. Texts preserved in Sinai's caves speak of heavenly cohorts standing watch at the boundaries between light and chaos. Their weapons knew no mercy, their will unyielding to please. When they descended to earth, it signaled a breached equilibrium, and the consequences of their actions rewrote the history of nations. Yet these chronicles were concealed. The Church, fearing questions about the nature of celestial wars, replaced the warrior's image with that of a shepherd. Tales of battles shaking the world's foundations were consigned to oblivion, lest people seek answers beyond their faith. Still, the truth awaits, in stones, in sand, in words whispering of warriors whose light was as fearsome as it was holy. In ancient chronicles carved in stone, angels appeared not as saviors, but as heralds of inexorable judgment. Their arrival was like lightning cleaving the sky, leaving only ash and silence in its wake. In scrolls preserved amidst Mesopotamia's ruins, tales speak of cities vanishing in a single night when celestial guardians delivered their verdict. Their words, spoken from on high, thundered like a storm, and no mortal dared raise their eyes to meet their gaze, blazing with righteous fire. One legend, etched on clay tablets, recounts a people swollen with pride for their wealth and wisdom. An angel, whose name was erased from texts, descended to their walls, enveloped in a whirlwind of light and shadow. He spoke briefly, pointing to the stars, and in that moment, the earth beneath the city split open. A fire, sourceless and unyielding, consumed homes and temples, leaving only dust that settled for centuries. Priests who sought to plead for mercy were silenced, their voices carried away by the wind. Such was the judgment of the heavens, merciless, yet just in its unfathomable logic. These stories were not mere chance. Angels, as keepers of a higher order, ensured humanity did not transgress sacred boundaries. Texts found in abandoned Palestinian temples mention the names of those who dared defy their will. Kings who fancied themselves gods and nations that rejected the laws of creation vanished under these guardians' gaze. Their verdicts knew no mercy, for their task was not salvation, but the preservation of a balance established before time began. But why did these accounts vanish from the canon? The Church, consolidating its power, feared the truth of stern judges whose will bowed to no human prayers. Pages describing burning cities and nations erased from the earth were torn from sacred books. They were replaced with tales of mercy, so people would not tremble before the heavens, but seek solace in them. Yet the truth, buried in sand and stone, still awaits those who seek it with an open heart. In the twilight of ancient times, when stars still whispered to humanity, angels brought gifts that shone brighter than any treasure. Not gold, not power, but knowledge, secret, perilous, capable of raising mortals to divine heights. In scrolls preserved amidst the ashes of ruined libraries, tales speak of heavenly guardians who taught people the art of writing, the mysteries of metals and stars, the secrets of herbs that could heal or poison. These gifts were sparks kindled in mortal hearts, but their flame threatened to burn through the boundaries set by creation. One text, found in clay jars in the desert, tells of a winged emissary who appeared to a tribe dwelling at the foot of mountains. He inscribed signs on a rock that unveiled paths to the stars, teaching them to read the heavens and predict rains or droughts. But this gift came at a cost. Those who embraced it began to dream of worlds beyond the earth, their souls no longer their own. The tribe turned from worshiping gods to venerating knowledge, and soon their light faded under the weight of celestial wrath. The angels who bore these gifts were not merciful. Their lessons were a trial, testing whether humans could bear the burden of truth. Ancient chronicles name those who, tasting the forbidden, deemed themselves equal to creators. They built towers touching the clouds and crafted machines whose shadows unnerved even priests. But each time humanity crossed the line, angels returned. Not with gifts, but with retribution. Cities turned to dust, and knowledge dissolved in the sands of time. The church concealed these stories for centuries. It feared that people, learning of the angels' gifts, would seek them again, defying the heavenly order. Texts describing lessons of stars and metals were burned or hidden in inaccessible vaults. Yet the memory of those who dared touch the forbidden endures, in the whisper of the wind, in signs on stones, in the hearts of those who seek truth, despite fear. In the beginning, when time had yet to flow and stars knew no orbits, laws were inscribed that formed the foundation of existence. These sacred codes, etched in the ether, were guarded by angels whose faces shone brighter than the sun. In ancient texts hidden in caves and temples, tales speak of sentinels who upheld the sanctity of these decrees. Their will was unyielding as mountains, as harsh as a desert that knows no mercy. To break these laws was to challenge the very order of being. One scroll, uncovered in the ruins of an ancient city, recounts a king who dared cross the forbidden line. He offered a prayer demanding dominion over fates, and an angel, wreathed in a whirlwind of light, appeared before his throne. Its voice, like rolling thunder, offered no forgiveness. It pronounced judgment. By morning, the kingdom was ash, and the ruler's name vanished from memory, as if erased by an unseen hand. Such punishments were swift, allowing no pleas or excuses. Angels judged not by human measures. Their laws, born before the earth's creation, knew no compassion, for their purpose was to preserve the harmony that held worlds from chaos. Texts preserved in the sands mention guardians standing at the gates of eternity, watching humanity's every step. Even priests, initiated into mysteries, trembled before their gaze, knowing that the slightest deviation from the code could turn their lives to shadow. The church concealed these truths, fearing their power. Accounts of laws governing existence were removed from sacred books, lest people seek their meaning. Instead, they were given images of angels as comforters, whose will bent to prayers. But the true scrolls, buried in the earth's depths, still carry the echo of those laws, untouched by time. They await those bold enough to read them, to grasp that the order of the heavens is unrelenting. On one ancient night, when the moon hid behind a veil of clouds, the sky split as if torn by an unseen force. From a radiant rift, blazing crimson, emerged 6 figures whose garments burned like the fire of stars. Their steps did not touch the earth, yet each left a trace, marks that glowed in the darkness and vanished by dawn. in scrolls found in the ruins of a temple at the foot of mountains. This night is described as the moment humanity glimpsed truth's face, but could not bear it. Those who witnessed fell to their knees, shielding their eyes from light that cut their souls. They could not speak, their voices bound by awe. One text, carved in stone, tells of an elder who tried to record the words spoken by the figures. But his hand trembled, and the parchment turned to ash the moment he touched his quill. The sign left on a rock near the city was found by archaeologists centuries later, a complex pattern defying decipherment. Even the boldest scholars stayed silent, fearing to unravel its meaning. That night was more than an apparition. It was a warning. The angels, appearing in fiery robes, sought no dialogue. Their presence signaled that the world's balance was at risk. Chronicles note that after their departure, the stars shifted their paths, and the river's waters turned bitter. People abandoned those lands, but the memory of the omen lingered, passed down in whispers through generations. The church did all it could to erase this night from history. Texts describing the rift and figures were branded heresy, the marks on stones dismissed as fiction. But the truth, etched in the earth, endures. It awaits those who dare look to the sky and recall that angels are not comforters, but heralds, whose omens demand not worship but awakening. Beneath the vaults of ancient temples, where the echo of prayers mingled with the scent of incense, the truth about angels died in silence. The church, rising over minds, could not allow people to know of heavenly guardians whose power bowed to no earthly law. For centuries, priests and scribes tore pages from sacred scrolls where angels were depicted as judges, warriors, and bearers of forbidden knowledge. These texts, brimming with fire and awe, were replaced with gentle images of winged comforters whose faces did not terrify but lured the flock to submission. In the vaults of the Vatican and forgotten monasteries, scrolls still lie, holding the true words, but their doors are locked to the uninitiated. One surviving account, hidden in secret archives, tells of a council of elders who resolved to rewrite the history of angels. They feared that the truth of stern emissaries would push people to questions that would unravel their authority. Pages describing burning cities and signs on stones were cast into fires, and those who tried to save them were branded heretics. Yet even flames could not erase memory. In villages far from temples, whispers spoke of nocturnal apparitions, of voices that shook the earth. The church crafted a new myth, where angels became symbols of mercy, their judgment and wrath erased from the canon. This was not mere censorship. It was a betrayal of truth, denying people the right to know with whom they share this world. In texts buried in the earth's depths, angels still speak. Their voices demand not worship, but courage to face their true visage. Those who seek will find these scrolls, but only if their heart is ready for the weight of truth. In the shadow of ages, far from temples and their dogmas, live those who saw angels as they truly were. Their stories, like sparks in the night, passed in whispers from father to son, mother to daughter, never reaching the ears of the powerful. In scrolls preserved in caves and hidden caches, accounts endure of these encounters, of faces shining like stars and voices that tore the heart with their truth. These people, simple shepherds or desert sages, became keepers of truth, but their words were deemed madness, their fates cursed. One text, found in a clay urn, tells of a woman who met an angel by a dried-up spring. Its wings were not of feathers, but of light that blinded the eyes, and its words revealed to her the secret of the starry path. She returned to her village, trying to share her vision, but priests branded her a liar. She was exiled, her writings burned, yet the whisper of her story lived on in those who believed. Other chronicles speak of wanderers who saw signs on stones after angelic visitations, patterns terrifying in their incomprehensibility. These witnesses were either silenced or confined in monastic cells, where their voices faded within stone walls. But truth did not die. It flowed like an underground river through generations, in songs, in tales, in the dreams of those who felt the call of the heavens. These witnesses, rejected and forgotten, carried the memory that angels were not comforters, but heralds, whose truth was too heavy for a world steeped in illusions. The church feared their accounts, for they undermined its authority, built on lies of gentle guardians. Even today, in fragments of ancient texts, the voices of these witnesses resound, calling to those ready to listen. They remind us that angels belong not to temples, and their truth is not for the faint-hearted. Those who seek will find their traces in the dust of time, but only if prepared to bear the weight of their light. The darkness of ages parts, and the truth, once buried beneath the ashes of lies, now breaks through to the light. Ancient scrolls, unearthed from sands and caves, speak louder than all temple sermons. Angels, whose faces shone like stars and whose words shattered destinies, can no longer be concealed behind images of gentle guardians. Archaeologists, brushing dust from clay tablets, uncover signs that once terrified kings and priests. These texts, brimming with fire and truth, restore our memory of what angels were: sentinels, judges, warriors, whose will knew no compromise. One scroll, found in an abandoned temple, describes an angel's final gift, a warning of a time when humanity would face their light again. This light will not comfort, but demand courage to embrace it. Scholars deciphering these lines tremble, realizing that the truth about angels changes everything: faith, history, the very understanding of the world. Churches, which hid these texts for centuries, lose their hold over minds, for truth, once seen, cannot be forgotten. But are we ready for this encounter? Angels, whose wings are woven of light and shadow, will not wait for us to muster our resolve. Their laws, their omens, their judgments, all are already here in the words whispered by ancient stones. Those who dare to read them will feel their soul quiver before eternity's face. This truth is not for those seeking solace, but for those ready to gaze into the abyss and see light within it. And so the veil is lifted. The sands of time no longer hide the angels' traces. Their voices, which once shook mountains, resound again, calling us to awaken. The question remains: will we find the courage to meet them as they are, not as saviors, but as heralds of truth, whose power surpasses all we have known?